Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Thursday. I hope you're all having a great week. My name is Jen Trum, and I am the host of this series, Rising Women in HR. We've got a little bit of rebranding this week. Prior to today, the series was called Women of HR Support Group. But I wanted to make a distinction between the Women of HR support group that we have as a Facebook group, and then also the Rising Women in HR series. And that is the series that you are watching today, where I bring on a different guest each week. We talk about her story. We talk about how she's climbed within her career, what she's had to push through, and the insecurities and the confidence and all of the things to get to where she's at today, and how she has really shown up for herself, and how that may inspire others to really take those bold, big steps to show up for themselves as well. So before we get into our interview, a couple of housekeeping announcements. First, I have a big announcement that I'm going to be making at the end of my interview with Heather today about the retreat. So if you haven't heard that there is going to be a retreat for women in HR, and it's going to be next April in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so I've got all the details to share with you at the end of the interview today. Can't wait, actually. I think this is something that's been a dream of mine for many years. And now to be at a point where I'm going to be able to launch this retreat is truly amazing. So I'm excited to share it. I'm excited for you to be able to see it. And I'm excited to get there and start really enjoying the time together. So, okay, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we are going to get started here. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Women of HR Support Group. I am really excited for today's guest, Heather. So Heather, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, where you live, what you do, a little bit about family, all the things.
Sure. I love talking all things. But my name is Heather Skillman. I currently live here in Lake Stevens, Washington. I am a transplant, but actually I've been here since 1996. So I think I really can call myself somewhat of a true Washingtonian at some point. But I grew up in the California area, both northern and southern, and went to college up in Oregon. So I kind of think I was slowly migrating up to end here in the Washington area. So I really like being here. And I have a wonderful husband. We're going to be celebrating our 22nd anniversary. And unfortunately with COVID, when we hit the big 2-0, we weren't able to go anywhere. So we're still trying to plot out where we're going to go and celebrate. But he's a really wonderful guy, and I truly adore him. And I have 2 wonderful cats and a great dog. As I say it, I have a downstairs dog and upstairs cats, because sometimes the dogs don't like to get along very well.
Not a lot of mingling.
There's not a lot of mingling, one cat, though, he's the mellow one. He pretty much said, no. And he came down and had a conversation with the dog, like, dude, I'm mellow. Like, I have nothing against you. It's the other cat that does. And so he's like, okay, you're cool. So they all hang out with each other. So it's pretty funny, but that's kind of a little bit about me and family. And
Perfect.
things that I like to do. I love to dance. I love to play volleyball. I was really into country western dancing for a while. That got put on hold for a little bit. I have been known to do crazy spontaneous stuff when a good song comes on in the grocery store. Don't ask me why, but it happened one time and I just started laughing, but I just go with it when the spontaneity hits. So I'm that crazy lady. But I also like hiking, and I can also do very well just sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing and just watching a good movie or reading a good book. So I have kind of the variety, just depends on what I feel like.
Oh, that sounds amazing right now, actually.
Yeah.
So tell us about how you got into HR, and then also about a little bit about your current role in HR and kind of the journey from start to where you're at now.
Sure. So it's one of those things where I realized people, at least now that when I was starting in HR, they didn't have like programs in college to get a degree in HR, which they do have now. But so it was one of those things where it wasn't like I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be in HR. Like, you don't really think about that sort of thing. But when I was doing a lot of temporary jobs outside of college, one of my roles was working as an HR assistant, and that kind of got my feet a little bit wet into it. And I eventually became a recruiter. So I was working for an agency and I was placing people, and I realized, it's hard to be placing all these people. It's an exciting thing, but I had no idea where they went and, what happened once they were placed. So that's what got me into becoming a recruiter inside a company, and started in that role. But then I also realized recruiting can be very cyclical. So there's times where it's like really crazy and you're going nuts. So, and other times where there's not very many jobs, it can slow down. So I wanted to make sure I had the opportunity to learn and grow. So I would say, hey, what other projects can I take on? I really love training. Can I do training? Other projects that I can do around benefits. Can I help lead the new employee orientation process? So they all were like, yeah, please. It was a small, department. They were like, go for it. So I was like, this is great. So I was able to kind of leverage that. And so that brought me into more of a generalist type of a position as opposed to being a specialist only doing recruiting. And so I moved from the generalist role into like a senior generalist role at a high tech company. So it was real small, about 250 employees. But we were the corporate office. And so I loved it because we finally got to make all the decisions, as opposed to when you're in another office and corporate makes decisions and then you have to roll them all out, and you know how hard that's going to be. People, you've got to be the champion for it. And you're like, but we didn't have any say in it.
This isn't my thing.
This isn't working. And that's what happened in my last company. The corporate was in Neenah, Wisconsin, and we were in Seattle, and they didn't understand how people could literally just roll outside the back door and find another company right there. Whereas in Neenah, they were the company. So we kept trying to say we need more competitive benefits. So there was always kind of that upward battle. Working in the corporate office was great. Then I moved into healthcare. And when I was in that role, again, I said, as a senior recruiter, what else can I do? And I became their trainer for their new managers, which is really great. So I became a train facilitator. And they were a unit environment. And so they had negotiations were coming up, and I said, well, hey, can I maybe sit in on one meeting just to see what that's like? And then all of a sudden, a week later, I had a binder handed to me. I'm like, what's this binder? And they're like, oh, this is the whole schedule for the entire negotiations. Welcome to the negotiations team. And I was like, wow, that's really great. But, kudos to my manager, because he said, hey, if she wants to learn and she's still up on top. I mean, mind you, I still had 110 requisitions I was trying to fill. But it was great. So I was always about learning and growing and what can I do, and always looking for those opportunities. And that was really wonderful. And then from that healthcare position, I went to aerospace and was there for 5 years, and I didn't do any recruiting for the 5 years. That was strictly a business partner role. And I moved throughout the organization, supporting different divisions within that aerospace company. So that was really a lot of fun. And then last 2 years, I went back to healthcare. And then when that ended, that was kind of right on the cusp of the pandemic world of things. And I kind of realized, I said, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm a certified coach. I've always wanted to do my coaching. So Jen, you and I mirror each other very, very well. And I said, I think I really want to pursue my coaching and start my own business. So that's pretty much what I did, because I want to leverage the 20 years that I had, the experiences that I did, and be able to help other HR people, whether it's doing strategy calls with them if they're trying to brainstorm some ideas, or if it's helping coach them through some stressful situations, since I've lived through quite a bit of them. And giving support. So that's a lot of what I do right now in my business. And I got to name my business, which is always fun. And so Skillman Enterprises was already taken, which I thought by 3 other people. And I'm like, how many Skillmans are there in Washington State? Right?
No,
and so then it was really funny, because somebody said, well, what if you were to add the in front of it? I'm like, oh, so I am the owner of the Skillman Enterprise. And it's just
very cool.
fun. I don't know. There's something fun about having the in front of the name. It's kind of like when you watch a TV show and they go through all the stars and then they say, and star, at the very end, they have an and in front of it. So I'm like, well, I have a the in front of my name. So
yeah. Well,
That's my journey.
congratulations. So how
Yeah.
long has it been since you've stepped away from the corporate world?
It's been about a year and a half,
Okay, about
you
a year.
know.
Wow. Okay, so we do really have very similar stories. For me, it's
Yeah.
almost a year. At the end of this month, it'll be a year that I've been gone from Dutch
Mhm.
Bros, which is where I was working.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so wild.
Yeah. But it's funny though, like I said, because my mom told me my 20s were for figuring out what it was I wanted to do. And she said, if you don't figure out what you're going to be do by the time you're 30, then I'll worry. And so it was kind of funny because in my 20s, I was doing a lot of different part-time jobs. I was working in some sales roles, some marketing roles, a bunch of other stuff. And then sure enough, like in 1999, 2000, which is when I, aging myself, sorry, but I turned 30, that's when I landed my role in HR doing recruiting. And so that became my career for the next 20 plus years. And so it was really funny that that was really how I landed in it. It wasn't something that I planned, but fell into it. And I really enjoyed it. I'm really proud of the career that I've had and things that I've done. It's a hard profession, but it's a really noble one. And I think we got to give ourselves credit for the work that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that honestly, the experience that you have had in HR, the the knowing that you have around so many of the struggles and the frustrations and the challenges and the heartache that I think HR professionals feel so often when it comes to, the role that we are in or that we were in when we were in HR. I mean, it's like constantly like a tug of war of being in the middle, right? Like being an advocate for our employees, but also being an employee ourselves and
Mhm.
having to kind of navigate that and still being in like this kind of still male dominated company cultures.
Mhm.
And so that's one thing that I've found, and I'm sure that you have found as well. I'm really curious over your, year and a half now being into coaching, where the value that we can provide is to really help people in HR remember the impact that they have, that they can have. I think
Mhm.
so many of us in HR, we've been in it for, so many years, it starts to chip away at us, the confidence, the feeling as though we can make that impact because it can be so challenging,
Yeah.
especially those HR departments of one. And so tell
Mhm.
me a little bit about that. What has been your experience in terms of what you've seen in the clients that you coach?
I think a lot of it is in that overwhelm,
Yeah.
I go through job descriptions just for, just to kind of look and see what's out there. And it just amazes me that they say this HR manager must do this, and this, and they're not like little tasks. It's not like one little thing, I mean, these are significant things on benefits and compensation, employee engagement. I mean, like really, really major things on there. And I think that there are times too where you are wearing many hats. You are wearing the hats of that for the company, you're wearing that of the manager, you're wearing that of keeping the company in line and making sure nothing's going to go wonky there. And so it is hard. You're juggling a lot of pieces. So I think a lot of the people that I work with are really kind of having difficulty with I'm struggling with too many balls, I can't even think straight.
Mhm.
And so we kind of get a chance to help them kind of get back to center, to kind of
Yeah.
breathe for a little bit, which can be hard. And other times if it's like I'm struggling with a peer, a team member, like sometimes even in teams, HR will eat their young, or they'll just kind of, make it very, very competitive, or I want to make,
Oh
I want to
yeah.
make I'm going to make myself better than you, so I'm going to set you up to fail or whatever. And it's just like, you've got to be kidding me. HR is hard enough as it is. Why are we having peers that are making it even harder for us, right?
Yeah.
And so I've coached people how to deal with some of those difficult situations with even their peers. And sometimes when they are having to do a presentation, there's times where they need to go in front of the executives and do an executive presentation, and they've never done that before. So I'll coach them and work them, through those types of situations. Or if they have to present an idea, and there might be like, okay, I've got this idea, but I'm not quite sure. So we'll work through and we'll strategize and we'll come up with the best way of how to do that. And the final thing is how to have that career conversation with your manager, because
Hmm.
that was what I had to learn. I mean, I was the one that was saying, hey, what else can I do, what else can I do? But some people don't do that, and then they'll get stifled in one area and they won't know how to approach their manager on what other things can I do. So we talk about that as well.
Yeah, that is such a good point. Such a good point, because I think so many people out there are waiting for that, from their manager. They feel as though that's kind of what's supposed to happen. The manager is going to be the one to initiate my development plan, or this or that. And so what you were talking about earlier, I was like, yes, the fact that you were raising your hand, you're putting yourself out there, that is not that's not an easy thing for a lot of people to do. But I think, to your point, it's so important, because if growth is important to you, you've got to be willing to kind of get a little uncomfortable and say,
Mhm.
what, I want to try this. I want to put myself out there, even if I have no idea what I'm talking about,
Right, right.
right
I'll
now. So
figure it out.
yeah, I'll figure it out. And so that's really, I think, the secret sauce, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, and the other secret sauce too is, and this took me later in my career, so I wish I'd found this out earlier, was I keep a kudos file. And what I did is I
Cool.
kept almost like an Outlook email to myself, always in draft form. And so when something good happened, or I finished a project, or I did something, I kind of wrote a little blurb about what it was. And then I saved it on that, because performance reviews, like everyone thinks like, oh, you work at HR, you train everybody in how to do performance reviews. It must be a piece of cake for you. It's like, no, I'm an employee too. I have anxieties. I have hard ways of doing things too.
Yeah.
And so having that binder, or that email was really good, because then I could go into my performance reviews and know what I did a year ago. Because,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, when you're in HR, you were putting out fires, you were running around, you were doing so many things at once. To try and remember what all of that was, when there was some really good stuff that you did, try and do it in the moment. And that's really what helped me a lot, because I got more confident going into my performance reviews, because I had that to look back on. And then the other thing too, is it did help in some of my career conversations, because I could say, hey, here's some projects that I have done. And, is there anything else that might be good for me to look at that might get me more in this area or this area? But
Yeah.
if I hadn't written those down, I mean, I wouldn't have remembered, because it's so like, what did I do yesterday? I don't know. I had like 20 things I did yesterday, let alone remember a year ago. So
Hmm.
I think that that's a really good thing that people can do as well.
Yeah, that's so funny that you did that. I used to do that too. Similar. I didn't call it a kudos file, but I had a worksheet. It was basically just an Excel worksheet where I kept, a single document. And whenever I had something that I was proud, that I did that I was proud of, I would go in and put the date, I put what it was, put
Mhm.
anyone else who was working on it with me, and then I just held on to it just like you. So that's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
love hearing that.
Well, and sometimes I call it a kudos file too, because when you're having one of those days where it's like, why did I even get into this profession? What am I thinking?
Yeah.
Um, I would go to my kudos file, because that would also contain, if people would say, Heather, thank you so much for what you did. You really changed my life, or this was really great. Or, so when I would get the thank yous from people, I'd also put those in that file. And
Oh,
that
I
would be
love it.
something that I would need to go back to, because then I'd be like, okay, at one point in time in my life, people liked me. I got to remember that, because today it feels like the whole world is against me. Right. So that's really where those kudos files do come into play, because you do need to remember those things.
Yeah, that's a good segue actually to the next question. So, for you in your journey through HR and now breaking the barrier and becoming a life coach for HR professionals, what have been some of the biggest internal struggles that you've had to really face, like the doubt and the insecurities and all of those things that every one of us have? What have been the ones that you've really pushed through to get to where you're at today?
I think for me, it's taming the negative voices.
Mhm.
Because I think what happens is you can never get rid of them. So you
Yeah,
you have to understand the fact
very
they're
true.
always going to be there.
Yeah,
So but what we need to do is, sometimes they're on a volume 11, right? It goes to 11, and they're screaming and yelling at you, and you need to learn how do you turn that dial down.
yeah,
Because and in some cases they can be there for a good reason. There are some times where they really are trying to say you are in over your head and what's going on here, and sometimes you need to listen to them. But for the most part, like 90%, they're really like not helpful at all. And I found that when I'm stressed, or if I'm just worried about something, or I'm anxious, I'm going to do something new that I haven't done before, or whatever. or I had a conversation that might not have gone as well as I thought it would be, instead of trying to take a step back and say, okay, well, how could have that been better? What would you have wanted to do differently? How can you learn from this situation, which can be a positive thing? It was just like, oh my God, you were horrible. You were so stupid. What were you thinking? Like, oh my God, you're like the lamest thing. Like I would like mean negative voices to me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard because then you start believing them, right? When they're that loud, you really start saying, oh, maybe I am not as smart as I thought, or I thought I had confidence in this, but I guess I don't. But you start shrinking down and shriveling down. And then once
Mm-hmm.
that ball starts going, it just becomes a boulder that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it makes it harder for you to kind of push it back up and quiet down. So that was really kind of the hardest part. And it was, difficult because there were some situations that were very hard where I was really struggling, saying I thought I was doing the right thing. And I would talk to a mentor of mine and really want to learn from it. But you can't take that objectivity when you're in that negative space, because the negative space, no matter
Yes.
what happened, is going to just say, you were wrong, you were stupid, what are
Yes.
you thinking?
That's
So
a
there's
great
no
point.
objectivity there,
Yep.
right?
There's
And
no
so
rationality really at that point when you're in a negative space, right?
yeah. And then it makes it harder to get up in the morning to go to your
Yeah.
work, because you're like, and then you feel like you're walking on eggshells, like you're just going to end up making a mistake. And then you're just waiting for that voice to say, told you so, you're going to do it. And so you don't want to be, we're hard enough as it is. We don't be walking on eggshells with our own mind. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, it really took time to, you know, figure out like, okay, negative voices, let's take a step back, and get to that place where I could really kind of calm down and say, you're really loud right now. And and there were some tips that I learned that were actually kind of good, and especially with dealing with fears and doubts. One person said, just write them all out, and worst case scenario, just keep going. And then you'll start questioning, okay, could that really happen? And once, what I've discovered is that facts or fears do not like facts.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Say
So
that again.
yeah, it was fears do not like facts.
Yeah.
Because and
So,
so that's the part. And so to start tuning it down, I had to start saying, okay, wait a minute here. Let me talk about some stuff. Let me think about some stuff that I have done that I did well,
yeah.
because I got to counteract this part that says you're stupid. Because I know for a fact I'm not stupid, or I know for a fact I can do certain things. And I had to kind of take some time for that objectivity. So I don't know if did I segue into another question on advice? Did I
No,
miss
no,
it?
no, 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 no. You're totally good. I will
Okay.
kind of love to pick your brain a little bit. You had said you had, a couple of different things that you use in terms of being able to tame that voice. Are there anything that you can share that you do specifically that you really find helpful in helping to tame the voice?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One is I do kind of surround myself with like things that are around me that will remind me of certain things. So I'll just kind of show, this is one of them. This is right on my desk here. So
Oh,
that was
oh,
a picture of me in the Grand Canyon. I was in my 20s, and we did packing for 7 days. But the night before that happened, we had a accident where some boiling water accidentally got thrown on me, or fallen on me, not thrown on me. So everything was fine. I was okay. The only thing that happened is my ankle. They got some of the boiling water got on my ankle. So I had a big blister on my ankle. I was starting to have a cold, and I was also like the least experienced hiker. And there was all this pressure on, we needed to get to the top by a certain time. And they would all look at me like, well, I don't know, because there's Heather and all this other stuff.
oh no.
So the night before, I went and I just sat down. We were by the waterfalls, and I just had a really nice calming moment. And anyway, needless to say, I plotted things out. And the next day I went there, and there were 7 of us, and I was the third one out of 7 of us that made it to the top first.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
I doubled my time going up than I had going down because it
Oh
took me,
my gosh.
and that just doesn't
Wow.
happen. And so this was kind of a reminder of
Yeah.
adversary things can happen and things can kind of happen to you in the world of things, but you can do it,
Yeah. You can
and
blow your own mind, right? Like
yeah. So
that's what that picture signifies to me.
yeah, so it just is sort of a reminder, and I have another little rock that somebody gave me, and it says "Be the sunshine,"
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I have that as 'cause sometimes if I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, but everybody needs sunshine, and if I can be that sunshine for somebody, and that becomes a way of me getting up in the morning time. If I can really help one person today, that really kind of gets things going on there.
Yeah.
So having little things, little any whatever it is that you can stare at. So when you're having a bad day, or you're just in that moment, or you're feeling all those negative voices, you can kind of hold on to something. The other thing that I've done that helped was kind of weird is when they were coming pretty negative, I was like, all right, I will have a conversation with you at 4 o'clock on Friday.
You're gonna have an
And
appointment with your negative
I'm
thoughts.
going to have an appointment with my negative thoughts at 4 o'clock on Friday. Until then, I'm not going to listen to you.
Oh,
And
that's
then, but
brilliant.
at 4 o'clock on Friday, though, I literally sat down, and it's going to sound weird because again, we're having these. Please tell me you have voices in your head too. It's
Of
not just me.
course,
Okay,
I have voices
thank
in my
you.
head.
Just wanted to make sure. So, but I really sat down and I said, "All right, negative voices. It is 4 o'clock on Friday. Let me have it." And by that time, most of the time they forgot. But if they did, and they're just like, "Well, you're doing this," and I'd be like, "Okay, so I'm doing that. What else? Oh, well, blah blah. Okay, you're doing that." Just kind of wrote it all
Yeah.
down. And I'm like, "Are we done now? Okay, great. It's 4:15. That's the time I gave you. Peace out." You know. And that also kind of helped too. It was kind of weird, but one, it allowed the voices to be heard, because sometimes if you dismiss the voice,
Yeah,
it's going to come back a lot louder and a lot angrier. So you do have to give
absolutely.
it some time. But it
Yeah,
was also saying, I'm not going to let you rule my life. Like, I
right.
will give you a scheduled appointment. You can tell me everything there, and then we'll have a conversation. But until then, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It took a little while, but it sometimes helped a lot. And it was almost pretty funny, almost to the point of where sometimes you have an appointment at 4 o'clock and they don't show. And I'm like, hey, cool, didn't show up. I was ready. So that's kind of it. So I think that's some good thoughts just to try and advice on that.
Yeah, that is really incredible. I love the idea of making the appointment with the negative thoughts. But I think you're absolutely right when it comes to, getting it out at some point in some way. If you're not getting it out, if you're not finding a way to really get to the root of what's causing the suffering or the upset, or just whatever it is that keeps you in like that negative place, you're right. It's going to keep coming up, and it's going to start to come with a vengeance. Maybe not every time,
Right.
but it will. And so I love that. I love the idea of saying, hey, you know what's going on in there? Because until you really know what is rattling on inside, your mind, and you give it intentionality, which I think is so good, then you're going to be able to start questioning it, like you said. Because at the end of the day, many of these, ridiculous thoughts that we have, we've just been carrying them around since we were kids, since we were
Mhm.
toddlers. Our beliefs in ourselves and our beliefs in our capabilities and our potential, all of that, I think, has been just sitting in there, since we were very, very little. It came from parents or other people around us. And so, our I think goal as coaches is to really help people kind of unravel that,
Mhm.
figure out what those stories are, and be able to help them be able to kind of push through them and say, actually, this is kind of bullshit.
Mhm. Right. Right. You got to call them
Right?
on it.
Yeah. So I think that's beautiful. All
I
right.
always
I
say it's
have
kind of like I always say it's coming up if you could come up with your own playlist. So I always say you have a jukebox right now in your head, and it's playing all of these CDs or songs or MP3s, whatever you want to say on there that somebody else put in there. And so let's take those out and let's put your own playlist in there. And so
yes.
that's kind of how I keep that metaphor of, if you could have your own playlist, what would it be? What would it sound like? And let's get that in there and let's replace the other ones. And so eventually they're just not going to be, hardly ever heard.
I love it. I love that so much. So, okay, last question. So, the last question is, what advice would you give to a woman in HR who sees your trajectory, your braveness, and now, venturing out on your own, and, everything that you've accomplished in your career? What advice would you give to her?
I think, really know that what you do as an HR professional matters. And it really is an important job. And, you almost have to sometimes sing your own tune because unfortunately it's not as well recognized as it should be and valued as it should be. And I'm hoping that's going to change. I think there is a shift. I think people really are starting to have more value and see the world of HR in there. But just, know that also you got into it for a reason and find out what that was, what drives you for doing it. For me, it was if I could just help one person today in whatever way, shape, or format, like that's what kind of drove me to kind of do it. And so if you know what that is, keep that going. And continue to remain curious, ask questions, and learn from others and share as well. If you've got knowledge that you can help another person along, be able to do that as well, because even helping others lifts you up as well. And I think that can always help out. So I know that's more than one inspirational thing or advice on there, but I think it really is important to have those things that you can go back to, have the I did it pictures, have those things that really remind you. If you have affirmations or whatnot, have those around you, whatever it is that can kind of pump yourself back up when you're having those really, really tough days. And just know that, not every day is going to be a really tough day. There is going to be sunshine at the end of it. And, you can find ways of getting that sunshine. And you'll know what that is, and finding people you can talk to, getting support, being part of your group is a big part of it, because you can find other HR professionals that are going through what you are. So, you might feel like you're alone, but just know that you are not alone. And if you keep that in mind, that can maybe help you through some stuff. And in the meantime, final thing is have fun. Have fun where you can. That's my motto. Have fun where you can, right? Grab onto it. When you see something fun, go for it. Laugh where you can, find joy where you can, because that's going to carry you through as well.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love that. I love that. Well, you had shared with me before we came on about a group that you were creating. I wonder if before we head off today, you can share just a little bit. I know it's still in the works, but I know it might be kind of interesting for those listening and watching to know what you're cooking up.
Yeah, so I'm going to create a Facebook group, and it's going to be called Navigating the Life of an HR Professional. And it really is, how do we navigate those waters together? And so it'll be where we can find support. I don't want to keep it as a venting place, because I think venting is kind of a negative space, but I know sometimes we might, so maybe we'll just have I'll declare it National Venting Day. We can. But I do want to have fun in the group. I want to make sure that we can celebrate each other. We lift each other up. We encourage each other. We make it a safe place to ask questions. And I'll be able to kind of help out how to get through stress, how to be more resilient when we need that. And just kind of make it a good community of we're not alone, and we want to make sure that we know we're not alone. And I do have a dedicated day that's going to be a fun day. So I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I will plan that out. And then we'll also have guest speakers like you're doing as well. And I think once a month, I want to have a Zoom meeting where we all come together. We have a specific topic that we need to talk about, to share and learn from. We'll do small breakout groups, and then we'll come back and we'll share with a larger group. So then you'll be able to take away some really good lessons and things that might be a topic of interest. So that's where the group's going to kind of come into play about, hey, what would be good for us to talk about this month? So yeah, that's sort of things that I'm playing around with, but it will definitely be called navigating the life of an HR professional. So.
Right on. Well, definitely keep us posted, or keep me posted on when that goes live, and I will plug it on my sites.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And I'll probably I'll do the reverse. I'll be interviewing you probably. And so people will get a chance to have some fun gen knowledge in my group as well. So I
look forward to it. You let me know. Well, Heather, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your insights. I think anyone who would have watched today can see how inspirational it is to see how far you've come, and the work that you're doing out there right now, I think is just incredible. So thank you for what you do.
Ah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Okay, signing off.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Okay, let me take that banner off. There we go. Oh my gosh, that was such a good interview. I really loved Heather's focus on positivity, and I agree with her 100%. Having negative thoughts and getting in negative mindsets is human, right? It's human nature. I'm gonna turn this on. Hello. It's human nature to have our minds get stuck in negativity. And what she is talking about is the ability to be able to be conscious to it and be able to say, hey, I am not dealing with this right now. I am not focused on this right now. I have something else that I'm really focused on. Therefore, I'm going to focus on you at Friday at 4. In her example, anyway. But the idea is that when we are stuck in a negative place, when we can catch it and become aware that that's what's happening, we actually have so much more power and control than we would ever give ourselves credit for, than of being able to shift it and say, no, this is not okay. This is not something I'm going to let control my mind right now. I need to get to this meeting. I need to do this presentation, whatever it is. And then the key that she and I were talking about is you want to come back to it. I think our negative thoughts, our negative thinking is something that when we're not really understanding what's at the root of it, right? Is it the root of it fears of being worthy or fears of being good enough, or, whatever those are, we want to really come back to that so we can make sure that we're questioning it. And like we said, is it really fact? Is it true, or is it BS? And when we identify that it's BS, we can then become so much more empowered to be able to shift it. But it does take time. It does take practice. Fortunately, it's not anything that's like a one and done type of thing. It's a process over time. And so I really appreciated how she shared what her process is. And I think hopefully that can give some good ideas to others out there. A couple of things that she said that I wrote down that I love so much. One of them I put already in the comment section, but she made a comment that was, your fears do not like facts. Oh my gosh, how many times in my life when I've really examined and become very clear on what my fear was really about, and it turned out that it was a story. It turned out that it was a worry about something. So the fear itself wasn't factual. The worry is about something that hasn't even happened yet in the future. So now I'm having worry and I'm having fear about something that doesn't even exist. And so I think so many of us can get caught up in, well, I just want to be prepared. I just want to think through all the possibilities. And that's great. I think it's great to be prepared. I think it's great to think through the possibilities, but not if it comes to the detriment of your emotional health. Not if thinking through the possibilities and being prepared causes you to spin out and worry and fears and doubts. So what we've got to do, what's so important to do, is to be able to separate the two. Here's what I'm thinking about it, and here's how I'm feeling about it. And how I'm feeling about it is just an emotion. How I'm feeling about it is not anything that's going to stay with me indefinitely. It's just how I'm feeling in this moment. So very, very good. What else was there? Making the appointment. And coming back to it and not just pushing it down. I think it's one thing to say, doubt, fear, I'm not going to deal with you right now. But again, to come back to it and make sure that you understand that our doubts, our fears, our worries, all of the negative emotions that we have are covering up something else. They're covering up an unmet need. They're covering up an unmet desire. It's covering up something that you, I think, will want to explore, because that's where growth comes from. That is truly where the greatest growth comes from within each of us, is when we really can become curious and understand where our negative emotions are coming from. So All right. Well, thank you again, Heather, so much for that wonderful interview. I really enjoyed chatting with you. I loved your idea about the kudos emails that you send out, and all of that. So thank you again. Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to switch gears, and I want to talk about. I'm so excited. I can't even tell you how much in the making this has been for me. So I am going to be having the first ever Women of HR retreat, and it's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona on April 26th through April 30th, 2023. I'm going to share my screen because I want to show you all what we've got here. Okay. All right. Okay. So I have a website that I am working on right now, but for now, I've got this Google file that we're going to go through. I'm going to share the link of this Google file after today's presentation. So you'll have a chance to go in and check it out, because I'm not going to read through everything on this because there's a lot of information here, but I can go through the highlights, and you can then have a chance on your own to take a look at it and see whether or not you think it's for you. So let me come down the screen a little bit. So this is a retreat that is about taking care of ourselves. This is a retreat that I think is so incredibly needed for women in HR. After being in HR for as many years as I have and going through the first parts of COVID while in HR, we're tired. We are exhausted. We need a break. And so I believe that this is the retreat that you have been looking for and that you need in your life to be able to relax, rejuvenate, and come back more focused and more confident about what you want and what you need in your life than ever before. I want to really create an experience that's not just about pounding in a bunch of learning, but it's also going to include activities and different things that's going to really help us connect and bond with one another, and also be able to get outside of our comfort zone with some of the activities that we'll be doing. We're going to be doing some Segway tour in the old town of Scottsdale. We're going to take a trip to the Grand Canyon. So it's not all just work, my ladies. It's going to be a lot of fun as well. There's some hiking that we're going to be doing in the area that's absolutely spectacular. The desert in the springtime is just gorgeous. So here's a little bit of information about kind of what you can expect with the retreat. So the retreat, I think, is for you. If you have a desire, do you have a desire to invest in yourself, recognizing that the investments that we make in our own mental and emotional health is one of the very most important investments that we'll ever make in our lives. I think, the goal of this is to escape the monotony that we're in, to escape where we're at in our lives, and really be able to honor ourselves in an environment that's about growth, it's about fun, and it's about sisterhood. We're going to care less about the opinions of others. And instead, I want to really help you move towards living a life that's more authentic to who you truly are. Stop allowing that doubt, worry, and insecurities holding you back from becoming the woman you most want to become, and then showing up in your life with genuine and authentic confidence. And I know for so many of us that can be so difficult, especially when we are not feeling our best. And that is where I think mindset and really helping you understand your mindset and how powerful your mindset is one of the big takeaways with this retreat. Scottsdale. Oh my goodness. If you have never been to Scottsdale, Scottsdale is gorgeous. It's about 30 minutes away from Phoenix, Arizona. And at this time of year in April, it is absolutely spectacular. I think the natural beauty is everywhere. There's tons of trails for hiking and biking. There's lots of museums and art and different types of activities to do. And the restaurants in Scottsdale are just second to none. They are incredible restaurants in Scottsdale. So very excited about having the retreat there. Sonesta Suites and Resorts is where we're going to be holding our retreat for the 4 nights and like 3.5 days. Sonesta is gorgeous. I highly recommend hopping online. You can take a look at their website. You just say Sonesta Suites and Resorts, Scottsdale, Arizona. A couple of pictures of it, but there's lots more pictures that you can find of it online if you're interested. And then this is just a little bit more information about the Sonesta Suites and Resort. They have a spa on site, so you would be able to do massage treatments, facials, whatever it is you'd be looking to do. They've got an incredibly beautiful courtyard and gardens within the property, and then, of course, a gorgeous pool and on-site dining. So I can hear you now. I can hear anyone who may have objections to, can I actually do this? Do I even have the time to do something like this? I can barely even make it to the grocery store. And I believe truly that we deserve to take better care of ourselves. I've talked to hundreds of women in HR, and very few of us really feel confidently that we're taking the best care of ourselves. And so this retreat is going to be a reset for you. This retreat is going to help you clear your mind and really identify what it is in your life that's missing right now. That when you go back and when you go home from this retreat, you are going to be so much more clear around what you want and why you want it, and not feel so obligated to meet the demands and expectations of others when it is causing you to suffer, when it is causing you to burn out. And that, my friend, is really, I think, one of the biggest things that I hope that you can take away from this is your burnout, your exhaustion is within our control. We need to find our voice. We need to gain that confidence, and we need to recognize that our wellness, our self-care is way more important than meeting all the demands and expectations of others. Because when we can take care of ourselves first, when we can put that oxygen mask on first, right, we are going to be so much more enabled and empowered to be able to care for others in a way that's going to be so much more beneficial. So my friend, you deserve this. And I think this retreat is truly not to be missed. A little bit more about what to expect with the tree. I'm working on a more detailed agenda, and I'll have that probably within the next few days. But for now, it's going to be every day. There'll be an opportunity to go on an early morning hike. Then we're going to have some breakfast. Then we're going to come together for some training and workshop time. We're going to do exercises. We're going to really dig in. We're going to find out how we can really get to know ourselves better, and do so in an environment with other women where we're all sharing our stories, we're connecting, we're bonding, and we're growing together. Then we're going to spend our afternoons doing an activity. We might be doing the segways in Old Town Scottsdale. We might be doing another tour that I have lined up that I'm waiting to hear some information back on. So we're going to keep it very rich with activities that you would have access to be able to do. Then we'll come back to our hotel where we'll have a wonderful dinner and do some bonding time. So we might hang out at the pool. We might do some games. We might, some other things that we might do. But each day will be a little bit different and will be an opportunity to kind of build upon the day before as we are working towards building that confidence and clarity that we desire within this retreat. The retreat is all inclusive, except, so it's all inclusive except for travel to and from the retreat, and then also alcohol. So I will offer the first evening that we arrive, we'll do like a little meet and greet social, and we'll give a couple of tickets for drinks on that first night just to kind of relax and have a good time. But other than that, alcohol is going to be on you guys. I think, this is really going to be an opportunity to take that step back and really evaluate where you're at. Evaluate what's working and evaluate what's not working in a safe environment. in an environment where you will be supported and embraced. And the friendships that you're going to make on a trip like this are going to be unparalleled, because we all know, we all understand what it is that we do and what we struggle with, and how it can be so challenging to be in HR, especially in the world that we live in right now. So it's going to be just so powerful in that way. So, and then I say, you still need convincing. Let me share my story. So you can take a look at this a little bit later, but over the course of my career, I have really struggled with burnout. I've really struggled with confidence. I've struggled with imposter syndrome. So I have really worked very, very hard on myself. I've done a ton of research. I've got a lot of resources that I bring with me now, that I have been able to work through all of these different things that were keeping me stuck. And I believe that bringing that to the table is going to create so much more richness for you ladies as I pass on what I've learned onto you. Okay, so if I can do it, I believe you can do it. And I believe this retreat is going to be an absolutely incredible journey of growth, of connection, and of fun. So looking forward to it so, so much. A little bit about the cost of the retreat. I know you're always looking for that dollar sign. The cost is $28.95. It is going to be all of your accommodations, all of your food, all of the training, and all of the activities. So all of that is going to be covered in your $28.95. And then ultimately, my goal is to have no more than 16 participants on this retreat. I want it to be intimate, but not too intimate, not too intimate, right? And I think that will be a really great number to have an amazing group of people who come together for just an extraordinary retreat. A little bit about me. If you don't know me, or if you haven't been introduced to me very much yet, this is just the information that I share on my page. And so I'm love for you to go in and take a look at that on your own time. And then finally, pre-registration is now open. Official registration is going to be on September 1st. But right now I am taking pre-registration, which means that if you're interested, but not totally sure yet, but you do think, hey, I think this may be something I'd like to try to see if I can make happen, then please fill out the pre-registration form, because the pre-registration form is going to be your ticket to being the top of the list when registration goes live on September 1st. Now, at that time, you'll then be offered the whole program as it is, but you're going to be offered it at $150 less than anyone who does not complete the pre-registration form. So that pre-registration form is important, because I'm going to be reaching out to you prior to September 1st to give you that opportunity to enroll, to answer any questions, to make sure that you feel confident that this is going to be the transformation that you've been looking for. So fill out that pre-registration form, get your name in the list, and then let's do it. Let's go to Scottsdale. I think it's going to be just so amazing and so much fun. So I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the comments here. Get that in there. Did you send that over? Perfect. Okay, so that is it for today. I am again so grateful to Heather Skillman for coming on and chatting with us about our negative mindsets and how we can really start to become more intentional with our thinking. And I truly want to make this retreat to be the most magical, the most amazing retreat that you have ever been on. So please take a look at the document, and reach out if you have any questions at all. I'm going to be doing an informational webinar here next week to start to really generate that buzz and get things moving on it. So very, very exciting stuff. All right. Well, have an amazing rest of your day. And Oh, one other thing. So if you didn't have a chance to see on Monday, I came out with a new series called Words of Wisdom Mondays. And each week I'm going to be coming on at 7:30 a.m. Pacific and 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, and really talking about maybe a book that's really inspired me, something in my life that I have been inspired by. And I'm going to be spending some time reading some quotes and talking about how that has really helped me in my own life as I have grown and evolved. So Words of Wisdom Mondays, 7:30 a.m. Pacific. And then on Wednesdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, I've got the Wacky Wednesday Story Time. So Wacky Wednesday Story Time is an opportunity to come on and just talk about the things that happen within HR that you can't make this stuff up. That you can't make this stuff up stories. So each Wednesday, I'm going to come on and share a story, either one of my own stories or a story that I get from one of the viewers or listeners. So if you have a story that you just say it's too wild, it must be true kind of story, I'd love for you to shoot it on over to me, and it might just end up on the program. Make sure, though, that you remove any references to names, anything confidential. We want to scrub it as best as possible. All right. Well, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. I appreciate this community, and I appreciate the gift I've been given to be able to be your HR coach. So have a wonderful rest of your day.